Do you know gerrymandering is actually really easy to fix? Theoretically, you can make it disappear like overnight and permanently. But of course, a reform like that will almost never happen. It's like a paradox. To pass a big reform, you need the consensus from the current electoral winners. But why would the winners want to change the system that made them the winners, right? So political reforms are always like the pain in the ass. Any significant reform requires a large number of people, millions of them, who understand how a new system would work and create a culture to make it happen. That's why I want to show you that there are systems out there where gerrymandering is simply impossible. The system American voters are familiar with is called the first past the post system. Right? Each district elects one House member exactly. So each district is supposed to have roughly the same amount of people. So what happens if the population changes and some districts become way more populous than others? Well, someone will have to redraw the district lines. And there are infinite number of ways to redraw those lines. You can do this, you can do this, you can do this or this. So whoever controls that process will have a field day. They're like a kid with a crayon and they can just gerrymander to their heart's content. That's why they're saying that voters don't pick politicians, but politicians pick voters. But what if I tell you there's a way to make redistricting simply obsolete? There is something that's widely used all over the world, especially in Europe and Latin America, which is called the proportional representation system. So instead of electing one representative per district, they elect multiple per district. And parties just divide up these multiple seats based on the percentage of the votes they receive. And these countries almost never have to redraw their districts. Can you see why? So if a district gets more population over time, all you need to do is to give one more seat to that district. If their population drops significantly, all you need to do is to take a seat away. You always use the same district boundaries regardless of the population change, but only adjust the number of seats in each district. And that number is based on population, so there's really nothing you can manipulate. Well, unless you miscount the population on purpose, but that's a different story. So if you're one of those math geeks, you probably will ask me, how do we divide these seats proportionally? Like, what if the number you deserve is not a whole number? Let's say my district has 7 seats and my party got 20% of the votes. So 7 times 20% equals 1.4. But how can a party have 1.4 seats, right? You either get 1 or 2. You can't cut a seat in half, obviously. That's true. Even in a proportional representation system, you can never make the votes and seats completely proportional. The proportionality is always approximate. And there are many ways to do the approximation, but I don't want to bore you with the mathematical detail. I'll just give you the simplest version. It's not the most common version, but it's the most simple one. So it's called the largest remainder method. Let's say this district has 7 seats. The first party got 50% of the votes, which deserves 3.5 seats. The second party got 25%, which deserves 1.75 seats. The third party gets 20%, which deserves 1.4 seats. And the fourth party receives 5%, which deserves 0.35 seats. Okay, now we first give out seats based on the integer part of these shares. The first party gets 3 seats, the second and third party each gets 1 seat, and the fourth party gets 0. So that means we have given out 5 seats. But there are 7 seats in total, remember? So what do we do with the remaining 2 seats? Well, now we look at the fraction parts. So 0.5, 0.75, 0.4, and 0.35. So these two parties have the largest decimal parts, what do? We give the remaining 2 seats to these 2 parties because their decimal parts are closest to 1. So the final seat distribution is 4-2-1-0. Okay, it's not entirely proportional, but pretty decent. So the bottom line is that under a proportional representation system, each district doesn't have to be equal because they have different number of seats. So there's no reason to keep redrawing district lines, which makes gerrymandering virtually impossible. But of course, there are so many other benefits of proportional representation. I can talk about it for hours. So drop a comment if you want me to continue on this topic. I'm such a big fan of proportional representation that I don't even think other systems need to exist. Well, of course, presidential elections can't use proportional representation because there's only one president. That's why I don't even think there should be a president at all. Okay, I think every country should be a parliamentary system where a collective body controls the executives. Why do we need one person to be above everyone else? Doesn't make sense.